Hey, and welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast, an adulting advice podcast production. I'm Danny Sheriff, and this is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. Let's dive in. Hey guys, this episode with Laura Lyons of Wild Lyons Wellness originally featured on the Adulting Advice podcast as a really popular episode, and it deserves a replay. Before we dive into the show, I'd love it if you left a rating and a review for the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast and subscribed, because this helps other women who are looking for information and support around hypothalamic amenorrhea find this podcast easily. Okay, now on to the show with Laura. This is Laura Lyons, right?
Lyons, yes.
Yeah, Laura Lyons. She is a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. It's a very hard one for me to say. She lives in sunny Portland with her husband and her cat. She is an outdoor enthusiast who gets outside any chance she can. If you follow her on Instagram, you will see this is very true. She has very envious outdoor activity photos going on. She's a self-proclaimed health geek, and her practice is called Wild Lyons. So I love that. I love any name where you can have like a bit of a play on words or a pun in it. It's like if I was an NTP, my practice would be like nutrition sheriff or something, like not very inviting. Wouldn't make you feel very safe in that environment. But Wild Lyons is a good one. I love it. So she hopes to inspire others with her nutrition, mindset, and movement, all while sharing her love for the outdoors. I really love this about you specifically because I truly believe in, the power of nature and how humans are self-healing, and it just doesn't make sense any other way. So that's why when I was going through my own health challenges, Laura was the first person I ended up working with, and it was a really good fit. And you helped me a lot. So I was really excited to have you on my show and ask you some questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Did I miss anything that I should add in about you and what you do?
No, I don't think so. I think that was good. I mean, we'll probably end up talking a little bit more about it.
Yeah, we'll learn more. I don't want to get off on a tangent again. See, I told you I get on tangents. But I'm like, I don't love prolonged about me introductions. I feel like in this world that people live in with podcasts now, like they just want to get into the content. When people intro with like a really long life story, sometimes it's not that engaging. I don't know.
I feel
I'm just
that.
Okay, good.
I feel that. That summed me up perfectly. So you're all set.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah. Well, one little side note is that I know that aside from being an NTP or an FNTP, you also, work on the Well-Fed Women podcast, which is like how I found you. I love that show. And it's really what I first started listening to like start my health journey. So before, like they were the very first people who even put the idea in my head that I have something called hypothalamic amenorrhea. So I'm just going to start off with that and we'll come back to that. Okay. But what was your journey a little bit, and like what led you to the philosophies that you have today when it comes to functional health? And I don't know, maybe you should probably intro what that even means.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, an FNTP, they just changed that. I used to just be an NTP, but they changed our titles a little bit. So now it's a functional nutritional therapy practitioner rather than just NTP.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I was working with you, I was just an NTP at the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a long title. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. So I usually just say I'm a holistic nutritionist. That kind of works better. Yeah, so I guess what we do is we just kind of believe in a bio-individual approach. So one person's diet, lifestyle, and healing does not look the same as another person. So we consider genetics, food sensitivities, allergies, symptoms, nutrient deficiencies, work, stress, lifestyle factors before creating a specific protocol to our clients. So every FNTP kind of has their own little niche. Mine is digestion and hormones because that brought me to where I am today and why I am an FNTP. Those were my biggest struggles. So yeah, I mean, we're not the typical like health coach that's going to tell you to count macros or anything. We
Right.
really dive in and we do a lot of research and really get to the root cause of what's going on in your body for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll also say, like, I work in the health coaching space. I'm not a health coach, but I work for a company that are health coaches. And so, like, I believe very, very much in the benefits of what, learning to understand the food you're eating can do.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not, I feel like it's not always conducive to like a great I don't know, hormonal environment, or it
Yes.
can create its own problems. So we're still trying to figure out like a balance between the two, and how the two, you know, healthy hormones and like
Mm-hmm.
eating to care for yourself and eating to like reach, body composition goals, or whatever it is that
Yeah.
everyone first gets into nutrition for.
Yeah, that's so hard. I think when I first started working with you, you definitely were much bigger on like the macro counting and the physique, getting to a certain like goal, setting goals and getting to a certain physique and all of that. So obviously we had to work through a lot of that since that was kind of your background. But I'm sure the Well Fed Women podcast kind of leans you towards thinking differently about that, which is
Oh
nice.
my gosh. So I've never told anyone this before, but
Mhm.
I actually did ask a question that was put on, that they did talk about her,
Mm.
Noelle and Steph, and I basically just unloaded all of my feelings. It was actually the very last one, the very last episode that they did before they changed the format.
Oh, okay.
Um, I know I'm on there, and
Oh,
it's like, so people should just go listen to basically me just
yeah.
crying to them. I'm just crying to them,
Oh,
like everything you said. I feel like I've never been that lean. I don't understand why this is happening to me. Your podcast always really
mm,
says to, eat more, trust the process, relax more, blah, blah. But like, I don't feel like I'm worthy of that. I don't feel like
mhm,
that information applies to me. It doesn't apply to me. Like, everything you're
mhm,
saying sounds great. I would love to relax and eat more, but I'm not allowed. And it's just because of this world that we live in, where being hungry is a good thing. And
mhm.
just all of that mumbo jumbo and all of that stuff that really got me into a pickle in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, we had to do a lot of like inner work, I feel like, just to make you realize that your worth is not in your weight. Your main goal was to feel better and gain your fertility back. And you can't do that if you're so laser focused on the macro counting and needing to be a certain size. So I definitely remember that question. I remember the question.
yeah, because it wasn't that long ago, really. It wasn't that long
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I remember crying when I was listening to them say it. It's so surreal. So yeah, it all meant a lot. And then after that, I basically signed up and I got allocated to you.
Yeah.
And here
Yeah.
we are. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a lot had happened. And basically, I want to give a bit of a background, because I would like to ask you a couple more questions about it, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of people in my life, or who have found me because I shared this story,
Mm.
but I haven't shared a whole lot since recovery. So what happened to me was I, started tracking macros because I wanted to change my body composition. I wanted to lose weight. I'd never really been able to do it on my own. And then I found macros, and it was absolutely great, because it's this way to like understand what
Mhm.
is going in and out and try to make it work with my workouts. And it went well for a while, until you start like, you know, re- you can't, you're addicted to progress. Like, you're addicted
Mhm.
to making changes. There's no stop. There's no stopping point. So then I basically lost my period really early on, and I didn't have it again for a long time. So that's it in a nutshell. And that's called hypothalamic amenorrhea, basically underfueling, over exercising. And one of the biggest, most interesting things to me is that you do not have to be a teeny tiny person. Like, you do not have to lose a lot of weight for this to
Mhm.
affect you.
Yes, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
that was my story. I became super obsessed. I mean, I had a lot of digestive issues when I was a kid, and I mean, my story. I could go on about my story, but I've had I've had a slew of health issues throughout my life, and most of it stems from my digestion and my hormones after going off birth control. And for a while, I had started eliminating a lot of foods to feel better. And it became an obsession to where I went on like a elimination diet for an entire year. And I ended up losing a ton of weight just because I didn't feel good. So I really didn't want to eat. And I started just restricting my food for sure, which again, I didn't feel good. So it didn't bother me to restrict my food. But I did end up losing my period. But what we were talking about is I never really got to a super low weight, which is really interesting. Like my body is just carries itself better with a little bit more weight on it. So it's just a matter of being completely comfortable with that and understanding that it is okay. Because to me, the weight that I was not that low in weight. I am physically not capable of being very thin. That's not my body size whatsoever. So you don't have to be at a very low weight to have lost your period. You do not. So that's a false assumption for sure.
That's a really interesting one. I definitely resonate with that too. Like there's no one in my family, none of the women in my family are very, very small. But what do you think when people, often men, but when people say, oh, genetics is BS, like when you say you're not capable of being very, very, very thin, what does that actually mean? And when they say that's BS, what are they referring to, if that makes sense?
Because I mean, yeah, if you want to restrict your food, for sure, you can definitely get down to a weight that your body is not supposed to be. But again, you're going to start seeing symptoms. You're going to start having symptoms like HA or thyroid symptoms, or your body is going to start going into starvation mode. So it's going to shut off your fertility, or it doesn't care, it doesn't care about any other processes in your body. It's starving itself. It wants food. So they say genetics doesn't play a role, but it does. Everybody does have their own set point. I mean, even, what is it, the 23andMe? If you were to take one of those tests, it even tells you if you're genetically disposed to being a certain percentage higher or lower in weight. Which again, it's nice to know. I mean, I got a 23andMe like a while ago, and it is kind of interesting because it said on there that I'm predisposed to being 10% heavier than the average. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting, because I've always felt that my whole life, but I never actually knew that was a thing. So, I mean, there is testing for sure that you can get done for that, but I wouldn't recommend that. But you should just know your body has a set point weight where it's going to feel its best and it's going to be most comfortable in. So again, if you wanted to restrict food, and especially men, because they don't need, of course, obviously their fertility might go down the drain too, but they don't really care as much as a woman if your fertility isn't working. I mean, we have symptoms if our fertility isn't up to par. They don't. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, if you wanted to mess around, you could totally restrict, and you will lose weight whether your body is happy or not.
Okay. So really, like when you listen to, I don't know, let's throw examples out there. I don't know, like Mind Pump, for example, like a very, very popular, very, very popular podcast about all things training. And they'll often cover questions about nutrition. And it's always down to the science of like calories in, calories out, which I totally get it.
Yep.
But basically, the majority of the population of the world are missing the full picture of health. And they're really talking about this one like pixel inside of the picture that is that they're just focused on like the size of your body, and no one is talking about what happens outside of it. No, like they're talking about it more now than they ever have, and that is crazy to me, because it is just so prominent in our community that we are not allowed to have extra body weight, and that our period is not very, very important. Our menstrual cycle is not important. So yeah, it's just been really interesting to be sharing my story with people and having it impact so many people. That just goes to show how little people are talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's talking, people aren't talking about the full picture of health. There is so much more to, looking a certain way and having a certain physique. There's nutrient deficiencies that play, a big role when you're restricting your food, which again can lead to a bunch of hormonal imbalances, digestion. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how many times I see people's digestion like completely go down the tubes from restrictive eating. It's crazy. Thyroid issues. Thyroid is so important, so important. And we don't pay attention to that. The restrictive eating attacks our thyroids,
Right.
It's not good for us. And then we end up with all these symptoms, and it's so stressful on our bodies. That's the biggest thing, is the stress that restrictive eating puts on our bodies. Whew. And then the excessive working out too. I mean, you were mentioning the Mind Pump podcast. I listened to them a few times back in the day. I enjoy listening to them. I don't know why.
Well,
I
it's easy to
like
listen to them when
them.
you have your own research and your own knowledge to supplement it.
Yeah,
but when you don't have any other information to
exactly.
supplement it with, it can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I only take what they say with a grain of
Exactly.
salt. I would never take their advice, probably ever. But I do enjoy listening to them. I like to hear their take
Yeah.
on it. But again, they're three men that are very, fitness orientated. We are more focused on getting people's body back in balance, regardless of your weight. Of course, people always come to me and they say, they want to lose weight, and we can always work on that. But again, your body will lose weight as a result of your body getting back in balance. So that's a super important fact there. And guess what? If you're going to restrict and restrict and restrict, your body's going to never get into balance ever. So you're always going to have these weird symptoms, and people are lying. If they say that they're restricting their food and they don't have some types of symptoms, they're lying to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
or it hasn't hit them yet. It might take a few years. Some people's bodies are much more resilient, and like for you, your body was just, you have a much more sensitive
Oh my
body.
God, I know.
So, you're going to have symptoms come up much quicker.
Yeah. All of my closest friends have tracked and restricted far more consistently, and even trained through it far more intensely than I have. And so, it's caused not just that's not just one of the reasons why I've been like, this doesn't apply to me, because I see other people pushing it even harder than me. So that's why this isn't quite what's wrong with me. But also, it just makes it hard to explain it to your friends as well.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's just a matter of your body's just a little bit more sensitive, and their bodies just aren't. I mean, I look at my husband and he can eat whatever he wants. Like, it doesn't even faze him. And then I'm over here and I can, barely eat certain things without getting a stomach ache. You know what I mean? Not so much anymore, but back in the day, when I was dealing with all my digestive issues, I'm like, why can you eat all these things and I can't, and it's just, his body's just, in a different functioning mode. And again, this kind of goes back to birth too. Sometimes certain things play a role in that. Like if you were breastfed, if you were a C-section baby, if there's past traumas in your life, I mean, there's a slew of things that can lead to you being either a more sensitive human or, being able to do what you want and have more resilience in your body.
That is interesting. I would love to learn more about like the effects on trauma in birth and epigenetics and everything, but all of that research is still really young itself, right?
Yeah, and it's really interesting to learn, and it really makes you think, and I think about my digestive issues and some of the issues I've had that came up in my life, whether it be hormonal. I had like psoriasis as a kid, and I still actually will get a flare up every now and then, and I kind of relate it back to when I was a kid. And my mom smoked when she was pregnant with me, because back then nobody knew any different. Like, you could do that, there was no research on that. So she smoked when she was pregnant with me. And then I was not breastfed. I was actually vaginally born, which is nice. I mean, that means I did get some gut bacteria from her. But yeah, these little things in your life can just completely add up to either you having more resilience in your body, or if you're going to be a more sensitive person to things.
Right. And how
Yeah.
often do you see people who are super sensitive to like lifestyle change like I was? So like when you were going through my checklist, I did like a 4 or 5 page checklist of symptoms and answered no to like all but 1 or 2 symptoms. So what
I
was your
know.
impression of that? Were you immediately just like, oh, she's just super sensitive to stress? Or yeah, like what do you think of that?
Yeah, so you were coming to me for HA. So that is definitely something that is the underlying cause is usually due to some type of stress in your body. So um, I was very shocked that you didn't have any digestion symptoms. Like your blood sugar was pretty good. I mean, those are usually the two biggest markers that I tend to see when people fill out the symptom burden analysis that you did. But yeah, it's just very rare to have somebody reach out for nutritional therapy and not experiencing like a slew of symptoms regarding digestion and hormones. And especially since your hormones, without you had no hormonal symptoms either. And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah, it was just really rare. But the biggest thing with you was just eliminating stress. So even just simple things like eating at the same times every day. I think you were experimenting with like fasting at the time, which is not something that would work for your body. So, just eliminating the stress of your body wondering when its next meal is. So I think you were eating at like the same times every day. You were eating when you woke up in the morning. Eliminating like, I didn't tell you to stop working out. I just said to kind of, like diet down a little bit. But I think you were dealing with like back issues as well. So it kind of helped because you weren't wanting to work out as much since you had some back things going on. But yeah, I think just honestly eliminating the stress of you trying to figure it out on your own and just giving you a clear plan to follow was all you really needed so that you could just eliminate that stress of just figuring it all out on your own. Because I think when we met, you had done everything at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just really the stress for sure.
Right. So with that, like, and your entire practice and the way you approach all of your clients, how much weight do you put on lifestyle? Like, work stress, loneliness, a lack of outdoors time, a lack of having a hobby. Like, how much of a correlation do you find with that across the board?
Actually, pretty much every single client I see, we end up having to address
Right.
stress
You did
for
do that
sure.
with me as well.
Um,
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we're all stressed out, whether we want to believe it or not. I mean, stress is just something that everybody, oh God, I'm still even working on this, to be honest. I had the shingles last January from stress. So that's just an overreaction of your immune system from stress. So, it's just from the way that we think about our bodies to social media comparisons, to the food that we eat, to working out too much, to working out too little, to, that stressful drive to work every day. It's about finding that balance, so yeah. And for me, a lot of it, like you were talking about earlier, my biggest thing is getting outdoors and doing something for myself every single day. So that's played a huge role in my overall wellness, is making it a plan to get outdoors every weekend. So me and my husband, we hike pretty much every weekend somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. And it's just a huge part of what makes me feel like alive and eliminates the stress of the week. It just gives me time to just relax and just download from the week,
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, stress is a huge one. It's probably, to be honest, if we're not dealing with the stress, you probably will not be, you're not going to do very well on a nutrition protocol. We need to address the stress pretty much always. And that's the thing. Like, I think I even told you about the stress bucket theory, how, we keep adding and adding and adding to that bucket. And then eventually it overflows. And that's when we start seeing symptoms. So hormonal imbalances or, HA, digestive issues, high blood pressure, and any like mystery symptoms can all just be due to stress.
I love
So
that analogy a lot. I've heard it in different ways, and it also applies to just like training, for example, is where I first heard it, where you think you're fine because you don't have an injury, you don't feel any pain, but that's just because the bucket is just full, just below the lip. But any second now, it's going to overflow. which is why, you know, you need to be addressing these things before there's something wrong as well. And really
Yeah.
making sure like you're taking some time, you're sleeping enough, you're eating enough, you're not, you know, hyper focused on these things that don't matter. Because I'll even say, like, I didn't realize the stress that, you know, that being so focused on my nutrition had. Like looking at the clock, this is a huge one for me, would be I would look at the clock and I was hungry, right? And I was like, can't wait till lunchtime because I know I had breakfast already and I'm hungry now. But if I eat now, then I'll have to wait forever till lunch, till dinner. And, you know, and thinking about that and watching the clock for my next meal and feeling a bit hungry, you like, oh, that's so stressful. But in the moment you have no
I
idea. And then
know.
and I wanted the days to end. I wanted the days to hurry up and be dinner time, hurry up and be bedtime so I can get up in the morning and eat. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of life is that? And then when I
Yeah.
started slowing down, eating more, I have to eat breakfast even if I'm not hungry, or even if I, you know, have feelings about what I ate for dinner last night and so I don't want to eat breakfast, like I have to. And then you stop watching the clock and you start being excited that there's extra hours in the day. Like, oh, yay, there's still 2 hours
Yeah.
before lunchtime. I can like get this done. I can get this. And you have all this energy and all this mental freedom. And all of that really
Yeah.
adds up to you being able to improve your symptoms and feel wonderful.
Yeah, just the constant thinking about food. It's so draining to be constant. I mean, obviously all I talk about is food on the daily basis, but I'm not over here like, you know, wondering about my next meal all the time. And I used to be that way. Like I used to, when I was counting macros and stuff, I would put in my meal, everything I was eating for that whole day, and I wouldn't eat if I was hungry at all, just so that I would hit the macros that I wanted to hit. So I could be starving, but I was like, nope, I already put it in my fitness pal. I already know exactly what I'm having today. I can't go over that. So I wouldn't eat if I was hungry.
Yeah.
It's so draining, so draining. I am so glad that I did so much work on that and I don't do that anymore because that stress alone was killing me, you know?
Yes, I do. You know, I'm sure you've seen them. There's a few memes out there that'll be based on that, like, you know, going to bed thinking about what I'm going to have for breakfast, or like just memes
Mm-hmm.
that so many people can relate to, which is why they become so popular, about, you know, always thinking about food and always being hungry. And then we all think, oh,
Yeah.
like all girls are just like that, like girls have bigger appetites than boys, women are always hungry, blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But no, actually, if any of my friends post that now, I think, oh, you might have a small issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's because they're restricting. So they just can't wait until they eat their next meal. They're always kind of
Yeah.
hungry, you know, and that it makes you feel worthy when you're a little bit hungry. It makes you
Oh
feel a
my
little bit leaner.
gosh.
I mean, why do people love fasting? People love to fast because you feel so lean all
Yes.
day. And then you can eat your big meal and then wake up again and feel very lean all day. And it's like almost tricking you into thinking you've lost a bunch of weight or you just feel really good, but you don't, you know. It's literally tricking you into thinking that you feel so lean and you feel like you've lost all this weight because you haven't eaten for, you know, 12, 15 hours
Mm.
or whatever your time frame may be.
Yeah, I've
So
definitely heard a few people, you know, glorify, including myself, right? Glorify like, oh, I love the
mhm.
feeling of being hungry. You know, it's a
Yes.
rewarding feeling. Totally.
Mhm.
What is your uh take? Because this is something I've always been curious about. It's always confused me a little bit. Yes, like
Mhm.
people were designed to be able to um survive a little bit of famine. Like, you know,
Mhm.
it does seem weird that we would be designed to be eating at these intervals. Like, what's your take on the whole, I suppose, like
Mhm.
Paleolithic style of things, and just eating
Yeah.
when you're hungry versus like I don't know, like how are we supposed to live?
Well, yeah, I know. That's so tough too, because it is kind of just very bio-individual. It's unique to every person. But the thing is, think about back in the day. You know, they didn't have the people, you know, would go on, you know, they would do the whole famine thing or the fasting. You know, fasting was always a big thing back in the day. I mean, what even era was that? I don't even know. But think about it. They didn't have the stressors that we did at all. We are an overly stressed society. So eating only once a day isn't going to help your body in any way. We also, too, nutrient deficiencies are huge nowadays. Back in the day, that probably wasn't even a problem because the soils were really good and we had all of our nutrients and all the vitamins and minerals in our soils. Everybody was eating off of the land. Everybody,
Spending time in the
the
sun.
walking
Yeah.
barefoot. Exactly. It was just, life was just so different back then. So I can't necessarily agree with the 3 meals a day type of thing. I mean, again, it's different depending on every person. Some people do great with fasting. Some people do. They tend to be men, that because their fertility isn't at stake for sure. But I mean, it's so bio individual for people. And it tends to be really good for people that have symptoms due to being very overweight,
Right.
being very obese. That can really help people. The same thing with like the keto diet can be very beneficial for people that are very overweight and need to lose a lot of weight in order to feel good and, get rid of symptoms or chronic diseases. But for the typical day-to-day person, it's just different depending on what your story
Okay,
is,
so if a really, traditionally healthy looking person, for example, says, especially a woman, says, I love fasting. I feel really great on fasting. I like um, you know, my health markers like seem fine from the outside. A little bit in your head, are you thinking, oh, I'd love to see like your bloods or something?
Yeah, I mean, do you actually feel that great? Sometimes we lie to ourselves. Sometimes we lie to ourselves and say we feel really good. Back in the day when I was restricting, but I lost like 40 pounds in a few months, I'm like, yeah, I feel great. Did I really? You got to think about that. Are you lying to yourself? Are you getting this instant gratification looking in the mirror because you look leaner and thinner? So you just feel good because of
That's
that? Who
interesting.
knows?
Yeah, I wonder if there's instead of a list of like, do you have these symptoms? Maybe a list of,
Yeah.
do you not have these symptoms? Because there are ones that I didn't
Yeah.
realize. There are things I didn't realize that I didn't have until I got them back.
Mhm.
Like my eyes used to just be crust machines. Like I just have so much
Oh.
crust in my eyes all the time. And I just thought, oh, I'm just a crusty person. Like this is me. Like, oh, there's Danny has sleep in her eyes again. And then when I started recovering and I had like a clearer skin complexion, I had a fuller face, and I didn't have these crusty dry eyes anymore. And then
Mm.
when I start seeing some sleep build up in my eyes, I know that maybe I'm starting to get tired. And so
Mhm.
do you have crusty eyes? Do you have dry flaky skin? Do you have like
Yeah.
hair kind of falling out or splitting or just like looking gross? These things we don't
Yeah.
realize that we like that's not just aging or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like even like you're talking about that, like a lot of those things are nutrient
Mm,
deficiencies. So like for you, that would have been an immediate sign that, oh, we need to add more fatty acids into your diet. So you need more fats into your diet. I think you were doing a very low fat diet at one point in your life.
mm,
So, adding more fat into your diet, but also making sure that you're digesting that fat. So, doing more like bile salts and certain supplements that can help you to digest the fat as well, because you don't want to just tell somebody to eat a bunch of fat when they might not actually even be digesting it or absorbing it. But yeah, nutrient deficiencies are one of the biggest things I deal with on the day to day. And a lot of it has to do with the restrictive dieting, being on birth control for a while, being on certain pharmaceuticals. Stress alone is going to deplete your body of magnesium, calcium, potassium. I mean, your body is just depleted. Zinc is so important for all of our body processes. And I want to say probably like 90% of the population is deficient
mm,
in zinc. And that's even huge for fertility too, for men. If you're infertile as a male, guess what? You probably need to have your zinc levels checked.
mm.
um, so yeah, I mean, a lot, and that's another problem too with this macro counting and the restrictive eating is nutrient deficiencies. Nobody's paying attention to that. You can't just take a multivitamin and expect that you're going to get all the nutrients you need, because you're probably not. And a lot of the multivitamins people are taking are not a available source to our bodies. So it doesn't even work with our bodies, and we're not able to even absorb what vitamins we're putting in our
Oh.
body. So yeah, it's just like a whole thing. But
Oh, yeah. So like try he's like what I'm feeling right now, like the emotions that come up is just like it's a lot of work to look after yourself, especially in this world. Like we need to be putting just as
Mhm.
much effort into getting all of our like nutrients than we
Mhm.
don't put as we put more effort into depleting ourselves of that is basically what I'm trying to say. Hmm.
Yes, we do. We that's the thing is, I mean, a lot of my work is just like taking women like out of these thoughts and emotions and getting them more onto like a path of like empowerment rather than self-sabotage. Because I feel like we're self-sabotaging ourselves by constantly restricting and restricting because we're just in that society. That's how we all live today. But nobody is paying attention to I think everybody needs nutritional therapy, whether you're eating well or not. I feel like it could benefit everybody just to learn more about your body and to understand what foods work for your body. And even if you have symptoms or not, I just think learning a way of eating that's going to work for you long term is so important so that you're getting all the nutrients and nourishing your body appropriately. It's just so
Mm.
important.
So do you have an opinion on where nutrition coaches, so just like someone lost weight and this now they're a nutrition coach, um, like
Mm-hmm.
where they need to be making changes? Because I think like I don't want to say oh people should stop becoming nutrition coaches or whatever because like I get that they
Mm-hmm.
want to help people and stuff, but where should they be maybe doing a little more study or work or something?
What do you mean
Mm,
like
I
so
guess,
like so
yeah, you go.
So are you saying a nutrition coach that lost like somebody that lost weight and then became a nutrition
Yeah, I
coach?
don't know. I guess like what's your take on nutrition coaches and where does something there change? It's a pretty broad question.
Okay. So yeah, so that's the problem too is there can probably be a lot of pretty
For
awful
sure, because
nutrition
there's
coaches
just
out
so
there
many.
to
There's
be
just so
completely
many.
honest. There's so many. And that's another thing too. Where did they get their certification? Where did they go to school? What is their focus? Everybody has their own take on things. So it's so hard. That's why, with me, like I always do like that 15-minute
Mhm.
call. We did a 15-minute call prior so that you actually understood like who I was, like what I do and how I can help you. Because there are a lot of really bad health coaches and nutrition coaches just trying to make it big on Instagram,
Yeah.
And so you have to be very wary of like the ones that you find to work with. And again, the certifications and who just, I mean, it's just such a broad, I mean, how many people do I follow on Instagram that are health coaches and health coaches? I don't even know what
I
their
don't think you really
certification
have to
usually
have
is.
one.
I don't. And I know, or like, life coaches or whatever. And I'm just like, what is your background? I want to know more about your background. I don't want to work with somebody that I don't know their background or
Mm.
how they're going to be helping me, or the people that are just making money off of Instagram by selling programs and stuff. I think the one-on-one component is so important. I mean, you can even attest to that too. Having one-on-one conversations with a certified person is so 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 important rather than
Mm.
just doing programs online where there's none of that one-on-one interaction with another person. It's just so important. And I feel like so many people nowadays are just trying to do programs and, there's no connection anymore. And there's also no bio individual approaches anymore, like how I, tailor things to certain people. That is so rare to find now. And, NTPs do that. That's what we're trained to do. But I don't know what health coaches, a lot of them are just making programs that are meant for everybody. And guess what? Everybody's case is completely different. Guess what? Somebody else that had HA is going to
Mm.
be completely different than you, and we would have probably had to do something completely different for them. Sometimes HA is related to a gut infection or, a completely different underlying balance, PCOS, endometriosis.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many different
Yeah, and there's so many people who
cases.
who just
So
know how to get you lean, which is yeah. And it's going to be a while
yeah,
until we
and
can
that's what they do.
like until people are signing up for the program that's not just promising you abs over your health. It's kind of like
Hmm.
going to a hairdresser and not having them care about what specifically looks good on you, like giving everyone the exact same haircut,
Mhm.
and not letting you know
Yes.
when like this look is cute but maybe not for you. It's like you would never go to a hairdresser expecting
Yeah.
not expecting some kind of individualized approach. And like that just but
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter for your nutrition whatsoever
Yeah.
with a lot of people.
No, and that's the thing too, like with counting macros, like I can't bash counting macros because I mean there are some
Mm,
clients where I've had them count macros just so that they can get an idea in their head of like what a proper plate's supposed to look like and stuff. People that don't
mm.
know, carb, protein, fat, and
Tool.
it's a good. I mean, you need to have a baseline sometimes. So we talk a lot about like intuitive eating, right? You can't just intuitively eat unless you actually have a baseline, like where you came from. You kind of need to
Mm-hmm.
understand macros and how they work and how much your body, needs certain macros in order to intuitively eat. You can't just think you're going to intuitively eat and lose weight
Mm-hmm.
if you need to lose
Absolutely.
weight, right?
Amen. I
So,
completely am so excited that you said that because yeah, because now there's these two camps, right? Oh, the camps of like you macro counting, calorie counting, like doing specific diets or whatever is so bad. You're a objectively
Mhm.
terrible person if you do those things, and you should just like eat. But no, like nothing's that black and white. And even like your approach
No.
there needs to be individualized for many people. Like
Yeah.
I have no regrets about the times I tracked macros because of how much I understand macronutrients now. That I can now listen to my body using what
Mhm.
you and I have worked with way more effectively and say,
Mhm.
oh, I had like just carbs for breakfast. So, like,
Yes. See, I love that. I love that. Like you can now, that's the thing, you need that baseline sometimes so that then you can listen to your body and then you can intuitively eat and understand
mhm,
what your body needs. And without that baseline, you're just going in blind and you're wondering why you might be putting on all this weight or, why you can't lose weight. And we kind of need to get to that baseline a little bit for just a little while. I mean, I never want somebody to become like addicted to my
right.
fitness pal or something, but just understanding macros. I never actually have somebody usually count macros. It's more so we do a lot of work
Yeah.
with understanding macros and what ones will work for your body based on your activity levels or no activity level. Different days are going to
Mhm.
be look different to some people, but understanding how that all works is so important so that then you can intuitively eat and be at a weight that you like and your body is balanced
Yeah.
and you can just
Awesome.
feel
Cool,
really good.
everyone. So if you have never learned a single thing about food, go and do it. Go
Mm.
and do it. Work with an NTP, work with a certified nutrition or health coach,
Yeah.
something like that. Someone really, really trusted who can teach you in a safe way. And, you're going to be able to eventually
Yeah.
get where you want to be without taking a million steps backwards to begin with. Cool. So if you could
Yes.
tell,
Yes.
everyone, since you can't take an individualized approach with everyone, but they need to implement one thing. What is a blanket recommendation?
Okay, so I could go nutrition route, but I think after everything we've talked about, I think my biggest thing would be kind of related to stress. So taking the time every day to do something you love. So not something that you feel like you need to do to like feel worthy or getting in that workout where you feel like you need to do that. Do something that
Mhm.
you really love to do and do it every day, even if it's only for a half an hour. Just do something that you love every single day so that you can show up for yourself and then you'll end up showing up for other
Mhm.
people as well. And for you, I mean, that's drawing
I was
now.
gonna
That's something that
say,
you
yeah,
implemented
when I saw
that
that,
has
I was
helped
like,
you.
fine, I guess I could
Yeah.
draw. So I started drawing, and I just got like a thousand followers extra from it, and all the people want paying commissions for it,
Whoa.
and people just messaging me being like, thank you for making this, it really speaks to me, it means so much to me. Like it it's just been like it's become more than just drawing, and that is like
Yeah.
what, that's just crazy, that's just like a whole other story.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I know my whole thing with you is to find something to just, turn off your mind and do something that you love. And tapping into your feminine side, especially when you're trying to balance hormones. So like that's a huge thing, is you had a lot of masculine tendencies. So I was telling you to like tap into your more feminine side, then that's more of a creative side. So having a creative outlet, which is drawing for you,
Yeah,
helps
I mean, I
huge.
can't even begin to explain. Like, I would not have been drawing. I wouldn't be having these conversations. None of that if I hadn't like hired
Mm-hmm.
someone to help me figure out what the heck is making me so uptight and so not well. So that is awesome. Okay, cool. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
get
yeah.
creative, people. Well, thanks. So I could
Yes,
seriously rant and talk about that kind of thing all day long. And so it's already been 45 minutes. So
I know.
but thank you so much.
Okay.
I wanted to know, do you have anything else to
Yeah.
share, and where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So I was actually going to offer your listeners 15% off any of my consultations, and any of my one-on-one. I now do like hormone balancing and digestion restore programs. So we just focus on either hormones or digestion, depending on your needs. But otherwise, 15% off just a single consultation and my follow-ups. If you mention
Yay.
the Adulting Advice podcast when you schedule, or you can just email me. My website is wildlionswellness.com, or you can even message me on Instagram at wildlionswellness, and just mention the podcast,
Awesome.
and you
That's
can get
so cool. I
15% off.
really, really hope some people reach out. If they do, let me know. I'd be so proud of them. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, don't
Yeah,
tell me
I
their
totally will.
names, but just that someone did. Oh, well,
Okay,
thank you
I
so
can do
much. I
that. I
really
can do that.
appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, it was fun.
This has been fun. And you can follow the podcast at Adulting Advice Podcast, I think it is, on Instagram. And I'm at Danny Sheriff. And this has been great. Everyone go and get 15% off a consultation with Laura. She'll fix you right up and she'll get you on track. Thanks so much. Bye,
Thank
y'all.
you.